It's a topic that's on the minds of people everywhere. There's nowhere affordable to rent. Recent grads and newlyweds are priced out of the market. Incomes haven't kept pace with pricing, and people are looking elsewhere. For many, the idea of retirement has changed. What does affordable housing really mean anyway? Who decides what affordable is? By all standards, the road to homeownership and safe and secure housing has changed in the past few years. What appears to be a genuine concern and intensely strategic proposition for many is the one thing that keeps many others awake at night. Scenarios once seen as speed bumps along the road are impassable roadblocks to an increasing number of people. These are the conversations being had at many kitchen tables, and that's why we're here today. We're joined today by John Connell, who's the Manager of Implementations at the County of Simcoe Social Housing Department. John, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi.
So, John, we have a narrow window of time here on the show. So, we all, I think, in general, appreciate and understand the challenges around affordability and inventory. Let's actually focus the next 20 some odd minutes on addressing some of the new and innovative ideas that are being discussed and implemented, as well as what other opportunities may be on the horizon to address the challenge of affordable housing.
Sure.
So, for decades, I think it's been argued that supply of social housing and affordable housing the demand hasn't been met. And only recently, and perhaps you can also talk about that, we've seen some new builds come online, and some of that demand is being addressed, but we're probably still behind the curve. Take us through some of that right now.
Well, the county actually has an affordable housing strategy. It's called a housing and homelessness prevention strategy, and that runs for over a 10-year period from 2014 to 2024. So under that, there was a target established to create 2,685 new units of affordable housing across the county, including 840 in the city of Barrie.
Okay.
And so in order to achieve that target, because, as you said, the demand is there and growing. It's going to require partnerships between government, the private sector, and the non-profit sector in order to be able to deliver on that.
I would think too.
That's right. Certainly, the federal government and the provincial government are key players, and then the municipalities for delivering at the local level.
Okay. So. I want to help Joe out, who's our producer, just to prepare for an image that we have a graphic. We're not going to go to it just yet, but you said you've got a 10-year plan, and that's terrific. But let's actually back up just a little bit and talk about that key word. What is affordable? And also, what are the sort of the different categories? There is the social housing inventory, the assets that the county manages or administers, but then there's also sort of independent home ownership. Folks like me and you who are having a discussion about what I can afford and what is affordable. So maybe you can take us first through the assets that the county runs, and then separately how you help the individuals who maybe don't qualify or can't place themselves in one of those available units or unavailable units.
Yes. So the county is responsible for running the social housing system across our area, and that is usually rent geared to income. So someone pays rent according to their income. Right. And there's approximately 4,000 units in the social housing system. There's a wait list of around 3,000 generally. It does fluctuate up and down, but that's been the sort of benchmark over the last few years. So that's one aspect of housing. Then there's what we usually refer to as affordable housing. So that's not rent geared to income, but it's housing that's at or below the market rent, the average market rent for an area.
Now, is that a rent or ownership price? Sorry, just for clarification.
So when we talk about affordable housing, it could be rental or it could be home ownership. Of our target of the 2,685 units, approximately 200 are for affordable home ownership. So the majority of the units that we're targeting would be for rental. But we do run a down payment assistance program to help people purchase their home.
Right.
And that's targeted at moderate income households of no more than around $74,000 a year. And then there's down payment provided to help people purchase their home.
Yeah, no, the rent geared to income program and the down payment assistance programs, as you said, there's waiting lists for these, growing waiting lists, I would think. As someone who may be looking for that hand up in either scenario, what's the process? Is it a lottery, or is it on first come, first serve? Is it by severity of need, or how does that assess who gets assistance and who doesn't?
So for the rent geared to income housing, the social housing, people apply to what's called the centralized wait list, and then they're placed on that list.
They can do that through the internet, or do they need to set up an appointment to get on?
No, they can all of our programs actually can be accessed through our website, simcoe.ca.
We'll make sure that email or that address is given at the end of the show here for you.
Sure. And then for the home ownership down payment program, again, you would apply to the county, and if you met the eligibility criteria, you'd go on a wait list. That wait list is a lot smaller than the social housing wait list. Currently runs at about 35, 40 households.
Right.
Now, I have to imagine, though, anybody who's been paying attention to the marketplace knows that almost every day a new regulation or talk of a new stipulation and tightening qualifications is in the headline for home ownership. It's getting tougher for someone to qualify. The federal finance minister has made the stress tests and projected the stress tests to be that much more difficult to meet in terms of a down payment and qualifying for a home and capacity to carry the cost of home ownership. At the same time, the province is squeezing the whole idea of developing rental supply by putting a blanket regulation across, what do you call it, rent increases, rent control, excuse me, sorry,
yes.
gapping there, rent control. So you probably have your finger on the pulse of that. For somebody who wants to qualify for down payment assistance and those criteria are constantly changing, how do you adapt the program to meet it?
Well, our program actually pegs the assistance at 10% of a purchase price. The applicant would still have to qualify for a mortgage through the normal channels. So certainly with changes in the mortgage rules, that can have an impact on a person's ability to get into the market. But we would provide the 10% down payment.
Gotcha. So when we come back, let's actually look at some of the stats that you have, and let's also look at some of the programs that the county has brought online and currently under development. We just got to go to a quick break, and then we'll pick up where we left off, though. So we'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to Hitting Home. We're talking about affordable housing, what that all means. We're joined by John Connell, who's the Manager of Implementation at the County of Simcoe Social Housing Department. Thanks for being here with us, John. For those of you who are interested, by the way, in any of the programs offered by the County of Simcoe with regard to rent-geared income, affordable housing, down payment assistance programs, etc., please visit simcoe.ca and look for the social housing page. John, we're talking about obviously different ways that the county is participating with other levels of government and the market in providing a place for people to, a roof over people's heads. We're talking about assistance with down payment. We're talking about inventory that the government's funding and creating. We have a graph that I'd like to go to just to talk about sort of where the trends are and what's been happening. So if we can bring that up, maybe you can take us through the trends right now.
Sure. So as I was saying at the beginning, our target of creating 2,685 units over a 10-year period represents both a challenge and an opportunity. And what you see there is the progress we've made to date. So obviously when we got going in 2014, we created 32 units in that first year, but momentum's been picked up every year ever since, and so that largest graphic on the right shows that as of the end of September of this year, 2017, 792 units had been created since 2014. So we were encouraged by that progress. And that's a mixture of, as you said, things like home ownership down payment assistance, but a lot of rental. So there's rent supplements, there's new rental development, and there's also creation of second suites in people's houses, which is another very...
You're involved with the second suites to a degree, I would think.
We are.
Programs in there to assist with homeowners who want to set up legal second suites.
That's right.
Yeah,
The county runs a program to provide funding to help people put in those second suites.
Now that's, sorry, I was just going to say that's a big jump from 32 up to 792. What accounts for that growth? Obviously, the first thing on that list would be demand and need. But obviously, to accommodate that, there has to be increase in the funding to implement these programs.
Or are you talking about just when the approval is given to develop these? Because I mean, obviously it takes 3 years to build something, you know, a substantial development. There's a natural shovel in the ground to, you know, handing over the keys sort of time lag.
That's right. Well, so out of those 792 units, almost half would be rent supplements. So that's not bricks and mortar, that's a rental subsidy that goes to someone to help them pay their rent, and that could be in a private apartment somewhere.
So let's talk about that actually for a second. So you're not, in that scenario there, you're not talking about creating building a building and having someone move into it. You're saying, what? You're saying we know you're just outside of being able to make it on your own and you need just a bit of assistance to keep you in your current home. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, that could certainly be part of it. Under rent supplements, we talk about shallow subsidies and deep subsidies. So the shallow subsidy could go to someone who's just finding it tough to make the whole rent payment, and so the subsidy can provide that top up, fill that gap between what they can afford and what the rent is. And then we can provide a deeper subsidy to people whose incomes are lower, and obviously the gap between what they can pay and what the rent is larger.
And the county oversees the funds that are allotted, and you know, they negotiate with the municipalities for what share they get, or it's strictly based on per capita, I guess, amount, like the percentage that goes to the city of Barrie versus Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, or any other region. Now those funds are coming from, obviously, probably municipal tax, county taxes. Funds are also coming from the provincial and federal level, are they not?
Yes, there's a mixture under the rent supplement program of subsidies that are funded through federal provincial programs. So, for example, between 2014 and 2020, the counties received an envelope of around $38 million in federal provincial funding to run a number of affordable housing programs. But additionally, the county itself has put $6 million into the rent supplement program.
Do you take a lobby position when funding is needed or increases are needed? Do you lobby the other levels of government for additional funding, or does it typically you respond to what's provided?
Well, we certainly take opportunities through our social services associations to make the other layers of government aware of the need. But we get allocated funding through the province based on population and income analysis that they do.
Now,
sorry, I just want to add to that. Is there? I mean, the awareness has always been there. Is there more, you know, actions meeting the words, though, from government at the different levels in addressing these needs and assuring that the funding is coming forward to the county level to deal with the issues of housing? Are you seeing that? Like, is it getting better? Are the purse strings getting tighter? Or?
Well, we're currently in the middle of the 14 to 20 funding period where we received an allocation, but the federal government has been working on a national housing strategy.
Right.
And so they're in discussions with the provincial governments at the moment, and we're expecting to hear some results of that in the fairly near future.
You optimistic?
we're hopeful that there will be more funding introduced for affordable housing.
So there's the topic that's called, or the segment of our society, though, is also referred to as, there's not just homeless or homed, there's underhoused as well. And they're often, I would suggest, either people who are living in an otherwise inappropriate environment. Maybe they have 4 children or 3 children and they're living in a 1-bedroom. How do you address that, and where do they fit into the mix? They have a roof over their head, but it's not ideal. It doesn't necessarily foster a thriving environment for the children to go to school and be educated and to live in a healthy environment, et cetera. So there's the underhoused, there are the homeless. Where does this fit in, and how do you track that and prioritize your clients that you're serving?
Under the 10-year strategy that was developed, there was an identification that primarily 1 and 2 bedroom units was where the greatest need lay. I mean, there is a need across the spectrum, but that was what was identified, and that would include well, singles people, obviously, but also single-parent families.
Young families starting out, as well as some seniors, I would think, too.
Sure, and recently,
Fixed income.
the county itself, when it builds its own housing, is going to take an approach of, whilst targeting those 1 and 2 bedroom units, also having a portion of new development allocated for families as well.
Right. When we come back from this break, I want to take a look at some of the builds that have been the county's been working on, but I also want to talk specifically about the down payment assistance program, how you're tracking the success of it, if there's an opportunity to grow, and maybe talk about some real life scenarios if there's an opportunity to do that. So when we come back, we hope you'll stay with us. We've got John Connell, Manager of Implementation at the County of Simcoe, and we're talking about affordable housing strategies. Welcome back to Heading Home. We're talking about affordable housing with John Connell from the County of Simcoe Social Housing Department. We've pushed this off enough. Let's talk about some of the new builds that the county has brought online. So Joe's going to bring up an image for our viewers. Maybe you can take us through what we're looking at here.
So this is a lovely looking rendering of a building that we're going to be constructing in Wasaga Beach. And this will be a 99-unit apartment building. It'll be owned by Simcoe County Housing Corporation, and it'll be a mix of units for seniors, single people, and families. It'll actually be sited on land that was donated by the town of Wasaga Beach, so that's great. And the construction is due to start on that building in the spring, and with an opening in 2019.
So this is 100% affordable housing units?
This will be all affordable housing rental units.
And you've got another project that we're looking at? Or is this the same one?
I believe that's the same building in Wasaga, yeah, from a different angle. This one is an even larger building that Simcoe County Housing Corporation is doing in the town of Collingwood. So this construction's already started on this project. This is going to be 147 units. So 30 of those will be rent geared to income, and then the other 117 will be affordable. Okay. Like Wasaga, it'll be a mix of seniors, singles, and families.
So let's talk about some numbers real quick. You had 2,000, what number was the sort of the backlog?
2,685 is our target.
Is the 10-year target.
Correct.
And we've addressed 792 by way of a combination of what you just saw here in some of the new builds, as well as assisting with rent supplement and
second suites
and down payment
assistance.
How many people have taken you up on the down payment? Do you know? Any idea?
Well, the down payment program's actually been around since 2008.
Okay.
So that predates the strategy. And since that time, we've assisted 375 households.
And there's some caveats to that, though. You're not allowed to earn a profit in the next year or two, double your money, flip the house, sell it, and walk away with a profit. Talk about what the stipulations are for qualifying and how that works.
Okay. So If you are below the income threshold for qualification under the program, because it's targeting moderate income households, and that's currently around $74,000, and you meet the other eligibility criteria, then you would qualify for 10% down payment assistance. There's a cap on the price of house you'd be allowed to purchase as well, which is based on average resale price for the county. So it changes
from
time to time.
Yes.
It's approximately 495,000 is the cap at the moment.
Okay.
Although obviously your income will dictate the purchase price.
If you can afford the balance of it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And then you get provided with that down payment as what's called a forgivable loan. So as long as you stayed in your house for 20 years, that loan would be fully forgiven and would disappear. If you moved within the 20 years, or you wanted to increase your mortgage based on equity in your house,
Right.
then you would pay the down payment back to the county at that point, and then we would recycle it out to other households.
Right.
And in fact, a lot of people have done that.
Well, especially with the growing equity levels in homes, it's tempting for many, I'm sure. Now you've showed us some projects that the county specifically is 100% behind. You also cooperate with other agencies that are out there. We had guests on here recently, Ken Kirk, Habitat for Humanity. You've done work with them and continue to do work with them. What are some of the other groups, and maybe just a general overview of how that partnership works when it happens?
Sure. Like I said, to achieve that target of 2685 is going to require cooperation and partnerships that the county couldn't do it on its own.
So it's not competition between these agencies.
Not competition, it's cooperation
yes.
for sure with the private sector who've done a number of rental development projects with us over the years. Non-profit groups, yes, we have worked with Habitat and other non-profit groups.
Yeah.
What I've taken away from Ken, and what I've certainly taken away from this conversation, is that clearly, whether it's a rental supplement or whether it's a down payment assistance program, there's a recognition that says if we can give people the assistance they need, just a hand up, as you referred to it, not a handout, but a hand up. It's an investment into that person or into that family, and if they can find stability, they have a much better shot of having a stronger family unit.
It's a
and
turning
certainly
point.
Stronger future. Absolutely, it's a turning point. So you're on the same page, I think. I want to talk about a personal scenario, a client that we were able to serve, and I think you've got probably a story or more than one of your own. A young lady came to us a couple of years ago. She had a considerable sized family, a large family, a number of children. I think she was either around 5 or 6 children, and there were just some life challenges that she was dealing with. But she had an amazing conviction and a tenacity that she was a survivor, she was going to make it, and she was willing to do whatever it took. And that wasn't lip service. I mean, when she came in, she wasn't going to qualify, but we worked with her for a year. We got the information from the county on how the down payment assistance program worked. We had to find a lender because not all lenders participate in the program or recognize the down payment assistance. I don't know if that's growing. I hope it will. But we worked with her for a year. She was cramped in her quarters for certain. But after a year, she hit every single goal and every single target we had for her in terms of building up her own down payment, getting her finances under control, budgeting, deciding how she was going to be able to manage servicing the balance of the debt. Today, it's been about a year. She's in her own home with her family, thriving. The kids are healthy. They're meeting their obligations. They haven't skipped a beat in meeting their obligations. And she just touched base with us last week about what a difference it's made in her family and the health, mental health, the emotional health, the happiness, stability within her children. Maybe you've got a story, because honestly, for anybody watching at home, this isn't lip service. It's not impossible. The waiting list isn't impossible. I know that Ken is actually looking for qualified people to work with through the Habitat program. You're obviously looking for qualified people to work with. Tell us a bit about that.
It's always great when you do get feedback of how the programs are making a difference in people's lives. So yeah, I'm aware that there was a single mum in an area of the county, and she too had a large family, I think 5 children, and she'd gone back to school, and she was able to secure employment. She was able to take advantage of our down payment program and move herself and a family into a home that she was going to own. Even on the rental side, I know of a project that was actually set up for low-income seniors, and hearing the story of a lady who had been living in substandard basement apartment. She was actually quite scared. She didn't have the financial means to move on, but through one of the affordable rental projects coming online, she was able to move into a clean, safe, supportive environment, and it changed her life.
Now, education has to be a component of what the County of Simcoe is doing, not just educating the general public on as to what assistance is available, but also educating mortgage brokers, realtors, as to, you know, if someone comes to them first and maybe they just fall below that radar. I'd like to be able to help. Arif would like to be able to help. Do you work with different industries in creating that awareness and education?
We've got 30 seconds for your answer.
We certainly do a lot of work with brokers under the down payment program, and with developers to encourage the affordable rental development.
We hope that our viewers will reach out to the county, find out what programs there are to work with. You've got friendly staff, and I want to thank you very much for joining us today on the program and giving us some insight.
Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I would like to add, before we cut away, is if you have any questions on that or anything else, or any advice for Arif and I on what you'd like to see in future shows, send us an email to emailhittinghome@gmail.com. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you.